Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com. Today, pork and beans and greens, or at least my Italian version of pork and beans. And as you know, beans and greens very popular for New Year's in the South. So they say if you eat beans and greens, usually black-eyed peas, you're going to have a very prosperous New Year. You know, no guarantees, but it's not going to hurt. All right, so we're going to take our mortar and pestle and we're going to grind some herbs. I got some black pepper, some dried rosemary, some fennel seed, salt, some hot pepper. All these are on the site, by the way, ingredient amounts. Some cumin and some dried oregano. So I'm going to make like a southern style dry rub, only with Italian ingredients. So I'm going to grind it, not quite to a powder, but you know, pretty well ground. I'm going to add a couple cloves of garlic. I'm going to mash those in. And because of all the friction with the salt and the spices, that's going to mush down to a nice kind of paste, almost like a wet sand. I'm going to put in some brown sugar to kind of caramelize things, a splash of vinegar, and a splash of oil. All right, give that a mix. So that's where we're going to put on our pork shoulder, pork roast. So I want you to buy a big old pork shoulder, boneless, and we're just going to cut it in chunks. Now for this recipe, you can just roast that whole shoulder and slice, pieces just like a pork roast. But what I like to do is cut it in, 6 or 7, 8 pieces. And you can just follow the muscles in between the layers of fat. Pretty easy. Trim any excess fat off if you find it. And that way, I can cover this with that wet rub, or a wub, as I call it. And what will happen is you'll get extra caramelization, a little extra crust. I like the crust. All right, I don't care if it's super, moist and tender. I want it kind of crusty and chewy. So we're going to put that in the oven at 350 for about an hour. I'm going to turn them over. I want a nice crust on both sides. You can see the fat coming out, some of the juices. I'm going to put that back in for another half hour, and you're going to see all that caramelization from that the wub is on there. And look at that. That's beauteous. So that was about an hour and a half altogether. But basically what you want is the outside's kind of crusty, not burnt, but kind of crusty and chewy. And the inside is like, fork tender. All right, on to the beans. These are just white kidney beans, cannellini beans. That's 1 can. Some lemon, some garlic, and arugula. Not that prepackaged baby stuff. I wanted full-grown adult arugula. AARP-rugula, if you will. All right, all the senior citizens got that joke. All right, we're going to take a pan with a little bit of olive oil, sliced that 2 cloves of garlic, put it in the cold oil, bring it up to temperature, medium heat. When the garlic starts to sizzle, add your beans, add your red pepper, a little pinch of salt, and just cook that on medium heat until the beans get a little kind of sticky. Just a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Don't let the garlic burn. I'm going to pour in the juice of a lemon. That's going to kind of deglaze things. A splash of chicken stock. Stir it around. We're going to add our fully grown adult arugula. And then you're going to stir that around for like 1 minute, no longer. Turn it off because the heat from the beans and the stock are going to wilt that arugula perfectly. If you wait till it's perfectly wilted in the pan, by the time you plate it here, it's going to be overly wilted. So just when it starts to wilt, take it off the heat. I'm going to put some in a plate here. Spoon over some of my lovely beans, garlic, hot pepper. I'm going to top it with a chunk of that caramelized pork with that beautiful Italian wub on there. Of course, you're going to drizzle some of the juices over it. And there you go. My version of beans with greens, the New Year's Day classic tradition in the South. And like I said, a little Italian spin. All right, let me take a bite of this. Oh my God. I mean, you can't fake sounds like that. Listen. Oh, so delicious. And, I know it's usually black-eyed peas and collard greens. But hey, I went with white beans and arugula. And you can't go wrong with a chunk of pork on things. I've said that for years. Simple, country, home cooking, very rustic. Translation, there's no recipe really. It comes out different every time. But anyway, if you go on the site, there'll be some kind of ingredient list. And give it a try. And as always, enjoy.